Terry Leonard
it still happens,
is the mayor of Ilion, and, of course, it was a scary time last week for about 3 or 4 hours in the village as the Remington Arms complex was surrounded by police. There was a threat that had been going on all day long. This was kind of interesting because you'll hear in the media people say things like, "We don't broadcast rumors on social media. We just don't do that." And Manasky and I had this conversation about it because you see something on Facebook, you just don't run with it.
Right.
The problem is when the threat is coming from Facebook, it's kind of hard to ignore, right? Mayor Terry Leonard, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. So tell me, first of all, a lot of action in Ilion last week. And I know that there's going to be I believe there's going to be a mental evaluation on the person who is being charged. What do we know? What do you know as of this morning on what happened last week at Remington?
Yeah, well, I don't have a lot that hasn't been broadcast, but I did touch base yesterday. I knew I was going to be on this morning, so I touched base with my police chief yesterday and got the update that he's able to give. You know, a lot of things are still part of the prosecution, part of the investigation, so they can't release a lot.
Sure.
But, the news last night, it was news to me as well as everybody that now there's going to be a mental health evaluation of Mr. Stamen. And that, I guess that's due course to give the gentleman the rights that he deserves. There were a couple of things that were news to me. It was reported that Mr. Stamen was a Village of Ilion resident. Apparently, he has a rural Ilion mailing address. He doesn't live within the village. And I guess that would explain maybe why he was his court appearances were in the town of German Flats Court,
All right.
as opposed to the village. So
and not everybody, if you're from the valley, you know that you'll have an Ilion address. You could live out in the country. You would have a town of it'd be a town of German Flats, but you might have an Ilion address.
Yeah, it might be nearly as far as West Winfield almost, and it could still be an Ilion address. But as you said, the alleged threat came over social media. I think our police department and probably many others, although there's a lot of garbage and crap out there on the social media, they do kind of monitor that somewhat and keep an eye on it. So this appeared to be a very serious threat, so they kind of took that very much to that there was a possibility of something going on. As we all know, Remington was locked down for about 3.5 hours. I didn't know that the Madison County Sheriff's Department and the Utica Police Department were also somehow involved in the event last Thursday. We all knew the Herkimer County District Attorney, New York State Police, and of course Ilion Police were all involved.
Yeah.
One thing, your producer asked me to check on what some of the costs to the village. Of an event like this.
That's something that can't be ignored, especially if you pay taxes in Ilion. You can't ignore that. Yeah,
that afternoon event, just with the village police, when we're not counting the officers who were on regular shift, there's an overtime cost of that event comes out to about almost $1,300. So, it's not a huge amount of money, but when you're paying the taxes in the village,
it's an extra $1,300.
And Mayor Leonard, you said that's just your department. I mean, it's probably not factoring in what the cost for the Madison County Department to come out and the Utica Police.
You would multiply that by X number of times to come up with a total cost. Of course, your district attorney, just like my police chief, they're elected or not elected, but salaried people, so to speak. So the district attorney, his time is in his salary. But all the other guys, the deputy sheriffs and all of those guys, there's money involved.
All right, I want to ask you too, if you were privy to any of this, the fact that people are saying, well, if there's a bomb threat, wouldn't you evacuate as opposed to keep people in the building? But that's not necessarily the case, right?
Well, I think that from what I am understanding, what was stated on the social media was that I think the bomb was in a vehicle in the parking lot. So and I think that's where the dogs and the investigators were focusing. So in that particular case, it would seem like it'd be better to
keep them in the building,
the individuals inside and away from the parking area.
Sure.
In one of those random throw-out cases where there's a bomb at Remington Arms, then all bets are off.
All right, Mayor,
what's the best action to take?
I want to throw two questions at you that are unrelated to this situation, but you're coming up on, of course, springtime, and before we know it, temperature's going to be up into the 80s, we hope. And every year you've been having the problem with water and this algae issue. How do you feel you're set to handle a hot summer this year?
Well, we've been working with the engineers and the chemists and the Department of Health, and I'm pretty comfortable because you never know, Bill, what's going to happen. But
right.
I'm comfortable that we've taken every step to avoid an extended amount of boil waters or dirty water issues for the summer. So we've been on it all year long, and hopefully we're prepared for the summer.
You actually have an ultraviolet lighting system that
those things are awesome.
That you use to correct the algae problem.
It's fairly new. It's a fairly new Department of Health ruling that there was one additional treatment of groundwater systems that needed to be employed, and the ultraviolet attacks. I'm not a chemist by any means or a hydrologist, but the ultraviolet attacks just one additional possible bacteria that could be in the water. So the ultraviolet unit has been in place, I think, since probably 2014 now, and we had issues with when we lost power up there on the hill at the reservoirs. The ultraviolet system was very expensive if it burned out due to a power loss. So we rectified that issue. So
all right, and
ultraviolet's a good thing, but it's something new technology.
Got it. And while I am no longer a resident of the village of Ilion, and I certainly loved my time there, I do try to keep track of the political things that are going on, and I know there are village elections coming up in June. The question, I'm not saying, are you running or are you not?
I'm glad you asked that because I was going to make a little side note because I rarely look at topics, but my wife read a topics article to me the other day saying, thank God Mayor Leonard is running again. He's reconsidered and he's going to throw his hat in the ring. Well, Bill, I want to go on record. I am not a candidate for mayor in the June 19th election.
Okay, so you are not running for mayor in Ilion. Well,
I am not. The picture as it looks right now, I'm a faithful Democrat. I'm proud to say it. The Democrats had their caucus last week. So on the Democrat side, our candidates, our current trustee is Bridget Triever McKinley is a candidate for mayor. Our candidates for trustee are Fred Hartman, who's a sitting trustee, and a Ron Schoonmaker, who's in the news with many charitable events that he works on. On the other side, I have officially seen petitions for Brian Lamica for mayor, and I believe Chuck Lester, a former trustee, has thrown his hat in the ring for trustee in the coming election.
All right.
Officially, those are the names that I'm aware of, but I am not in the running.
All right. I'm glad I asked that question. Chuck Lester, by the way, is we hear from Chuck every once in a while.
Stilts, right?
And you see him on stilts and on a St. Luke's or Faxton commercial for hip replacement, too, I think.
Claim to fame.
Yep.
Well, Mayor Leonard, I want to say, thank you for your service to the village, and also congratulations on getting a positive topics article, because that doesn't ever happen.
I made it a point of not to read topics since I've been in office.
Probably, that'll probably a smart thing to do, I think. So, all right, Mayor. Well, I appreciate you're always available when we ask you to speak out, and we appreciate that. And again, as Andrew said, thanks for your service.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Bill.
Okay, Mayor Terry Leonard in Ilion, who is now telling us that he will be stepping down after the June elections.